You have not come here by accident. Nothing in this world happens by chance. There is a law and a pattern beneath every event in your life. And the very fact that you hear my voice tonight is itself evidence that something in you is ready to awaken, ready to cast off the old garment of limitation and put on a new identity. I have said many times, and I say again, the universe does not respond to your wishes. It responds to your assumption of yourself. For the man who wishes remains a beggar in consciousness, pleading with life to treat him kindly. But the man who assumes, the man who quietly knows himself to be what he desires to be, walks clothed in the dignity of fulfillment. One begs for change, the other is the change. Tonight, I shall speak not to the world outside of you, but to the invisible center within you, the only creative power there is. And I ask you to listen, not as a student collecting ideas, but as one preparing to prove a law. For this is not theory, this is something to be tested. The world you know, its people, its rejections, its opportunities, its delays, is nothing more than yourself pushed out. All that you behold without is fashioned by what you have been assuming yourself to be within. If you have felt small, the world made you small. If you have felt overlooked, the world overlooked you. If you have felt chosen, doors opened, as if by unseen hands. And so tonight, before we speak of methods or technique, we begin with identity. Ask yourself quietly, who am I in my own eyes? Not who your family believes you to be, not who society has labeled you, not even who your circumstances suggest you are, but who do you assume yourself to be when no one is watching? For I tell you, you do not manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. This entire journey we embark upon tonight is not about altering conditions, but about altering the one who experiences them. Change the man, and his circumstances must rearrange to mirror the change. Nothing can oppose a true assumption, for assumption sustained hardens into fact. Now, before we continue, I invite you to do something of great significance, not for me, but for your own consciousness. Declare silently, and if you feel moved, put it into written word as a solemn vow. I am prepared to receive. Do not write it as hope. Declare it as truth. For I have learned that the moment a man gives voice to his inner conviction, he sets in motion the unseen forces that shape his world. We begin. Now let us lay the foundation. For without this foundation, nothing that follows will have meaning. Your consciousness is the one and only reality. I do not mean that the things you see and touch are unreal, or that the world is an illusion in the sense that it does not exist. I mean that the world you know, your personal world, is but a projection of states that you occupy in consciousness. The outer world is the shadow. Consciousness is the substance. Everything you have ever experienced, whether joy or sorrow, gain or loss, rejection or success, has arisen from a state assumed by you, either knowingly or in ignorance. You are not the victim of fate, nor are you at the mercy of conditions. You are the operant power. Now let me make a critical distinction, for many confuse these ideas and therefore fail to apply them. There is a difference between awareness of being and what you are aware of being. Awareness of being is pure existence. It is that silent sense of I am, before you attach anything to it. A child first becomes aware that he is long before he learns to say what he is. That pure awareness is God. But the moment you say, I am poor, I am unworthy, I am overlooked, I am fortunate, I am chosen, you have clothed the pure being in a garment. You have assumed a state. You have assigned yourself a role in the great drama of life. And the world, being nothing more than imagination objectified, must reflect that role back to you. No one tells you this while you are growing up. You are taught to judge by appearances, taught that the world is independent of your inner life. Yet all along the world has been rearranging itself to conform to your assumptions. Let me give you an example. Some years ago, a man came to me who lived a very modest life. Not miserable, but always behind. Always just enough to survive. Always the fear that tomorrow he might lack what today barely provided. His life was a quiet struggle for security. He believed his job was the cause. He believed his education was insufficient. He believed society had placed him in a low rung. All his explanations pointed outward, But I told him what I tell you now. Your world is yourself pushed out. And rather than change jobs, rather than seek new opportunities, he did something far more radical. He altered his concept of himself. Night after night he fell asleep, feeling himself to be a man of means, not boastfully rich, not flaunting wealth, but a man to whom money came naturally, easily, without strain. A man who always had more than enough for his needs and the freedom to choose. Nothing outwardly changed at first, but slowly, and with a precision no human mind could calculate. Life began reorganizing itself around the new concept. Unexpected invitations, new contacts, a promotion that had once seemed impossible. Within the year, his income had multiplied, and he laughed, telling me, I changed nothing outside, yet everything changed. He did not change the world, he changed himself, and the world followed. For states are the root, and circumstances are only the shadow. Now understand this deeply. You do not stop assuming. You are always assuming something about yourself. You assume yourself to be lucky or unlucky. You assume people treat you well or ignore you. You assume money flows or escapes. You assume you are chosen or forgotten. And the universe, being pure response to consciousness, answers each assumption faithfully. This law does not ask whether you assume wisely or foolishly. It simply mirrors the assumption. Just as the earth will grow weeds or wheat with equal obedience, depending on the seed planted, consciousness will manifest poverty or abundance, depending on the state you occupy. You must therefore take full responsibility for your assumptions, not in the spirit of blame, but in the spirit of power. For if you are the cause, you can be the cure. Let this be the cornerstone of everything we explore tonight. What you assume of yourself, even without proof, hardens into fact. You need not fight the shadow. You need only change the light that casts it. So I ask you now, not as a student, but as a creator. What are you assuming yourself to be? Not what you wish to be, not what you pretend to be, but what, in the quiet of your mind, you believe yourself to be right now. For the universe answers that silent verdict with immaculate fidelity. Let us go deeper. For if consciousness is the only creative power, then the most important question you can ever ask is not, what do I want, but who am I in my own eyes? When you are alone and quiet, stripped of all pretense, all performance, all masks worn for the world, who do you secretly believe yourself to be? Not who you wish you were, not who you claim to be before others, but who you feel yourself to be in the silent chambers of your mind. That silent conviction, often unspoken, often unexamined, is your true assumption, and your world has no choice but to reflect it. Most people live unaware of this inner verdict. They go through life believing events shape their sense of identity. But it is the reverse. Identity shapes events. Your self-concept is nothing more than a quiet, chronic assumption, repeated so consistently that it becomes invisible to you. Like a background hum you no longer notice, yet it colors every experience you have. A man may outwardly work hard, strive, push, and beg for success, yet inwardly carry the assumption, I am the one they overlook. And though he may send 100 letters, knock on 100 doors, speak to 1,000 men, he will meet in every encounter the same experience, life confirming his inner belief. I have watched this countless times. A man told me once, it doesn't matter what I try, I am always passed over. I said to him, perhaps it does not matter what you try, because you have assumed that you are the one who is passed over, and the world can only echo your assumption. Another woman came to me, gentle in spirit, sincere in desire, but with a deep sense of unworthiness. She said, money always slips away. Every time it comes, something happens, and I lose it. She believed life to be a cruel sequence of coincidence, yet nothing is coincidence. She was assuming, I am one who cannot keep what is given to me, and money, being but a shadow of consciousness, obeyed. The world did not betray her. It simply confirmed her belief. For I tell you, the world is perfectly faithful. It is not kind or cruel. It is not generous or withholding. It is a mirror. If you assume you are forgotten, life will forget you. If you assume you are chosen, doors will open before you. If you assume you are rejected, the world will provide evidence. If you assume you are worthy, the world will rise to meet you. It does not matter whether the assumption is noble or unworthy. If sustained, it must manifest. Now some do not like to hear this. They say, "Are you telling me that my suffering has been my doing?" But I do not speak in the language of blame. I speak in the language of power. For if you are the cause, you are free. If you hand causation to the world, your upbringing, society, circumstance, then you declare yourself a servant to forces outside yourself. But if you reclaim the cause within, then no man, no system, no economy can dictate your fate. So I ask again, and I ask gently, who do you assume yourself to be right now? Not who you hope to be tomorrow, not who you were 10 years ago. Who are you now? In the living present of consciousness. There are those who assume they are the one the world overlooks and the world obliges. There are those who assume they are the one to whom good things naturally come, and life arranges itself accordingly. There are those who assume love is scarce, and so they walk through life unloved. And there are those who assume calmly, quietly, without boast, I am the beloved, I am wanted, I am chosen, and the world rearranges to prove them right. Make no mistake, your assumption precedes your experience. If you dislike your world, it is only telling you who you have been assuming yourself to be. Change the assumption, change the world. But you do not change the world by force. You do not change the world by demand. You do not change the world by action alone. You change the world by changing the invisible conception you hold of yourself. Now pause with me. Do not rush past this. Do not nod as though you understood. Let the words sink deep. You are not seeking to manifest things. You are seeking to manifest a new self, and the things will arrange themselves accordingly. This is the law. Now let us enter the central inquiry of this evening, one far deeper than the pursuit of any object or any outward change of circumstance. For all things, health, success, companionship, wealth, are merely shadows cast by a far more fundamental cause. And that cause is the conception you hold of yourself. So I ask you, not casually, not intellectually, but with the utmost sincerity, when you are alone and quiet, who do you secretly believe yourself to be? Not who you tell others you are, not who the world expects you to be, not even who you wish you could become, but who, in the silence of your own mind, do you feel yourself to be? That silent, persistent assumption is the architect of your world. Most men imagine they have no assumption. They say, I don't assume anything, I merely face facts. But facts are only past assumptions made visible. When a man says, this is just the way things are, he is really saying, this is the way I have been assuming myself to be. There is no life outside the mind that perceives it. Your experiences are not independent entities, imposed upon you by chance or fate. They are reflections, perfect reflections, of the state you occupy. Let me make this clearer. A man may loudly declare, I deserve success, yet within feel himself inadequate, unprepared, inferior to those he admires. His outer declaration is a whisper, compared to the thunder of his inner conviction. He does not receive according to what he says he desires, but according to what he is in consciousness. Self-concept is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is subtle, chronic, persistent. It is the ever-present background sense of being that follows you like a shadow wherever you go. Most people never examine it. They assume they are unlucky, or ordinary, or overlooked, simply because they have felt this way for so long that they confuse the feeling with identity. They do not realize that these feelings are states which can be abandoned as easily as one sheds a coat. Let me paint for you a few examples. There is a man who walks into every room with the quiet conviction that he is the one the world forgets. He speaks, yet feels unheard. He applies, yet expects rejection. He participates, yet anticipates being chosen last. This man will swear that life has been unkind, yet life has only mirrored his assumption. There is another who says, I never keep money when it comes. Something always takes it away. A bill, a misfortune, a mistake. And this too becomes law unto itself, not because money is cruel, but because the individual holds the assumption, I am one who cannot retain what is good. And so the universe, with perfect fidelity, fulfills the role he has assigned to himself. Then there is the woman who assumes she is secondary, never the favored one, never the first choice. She may crave love and pray for affection, but beneath all desire lies a quiet conviction. I am the one others choose last. And so she meets, in every relationship, the echo of her belief. She may change partners, cities, circumstances, but she cannot escape herself. Wherever she goes, she carries her assumption, and the world faithfully reenacts it. Now consider another woman, a woman who assumes she is chosen, valued, blessed. She does not seek attention. She does not beg for love, nor demand proof. She simply assumes herself to be the one others cherish. And life, being but the outpicturing of consciousness, arranges itself accordingly. People treat her differently, not because they are different people, but because she has assumed a different role in their script. No experience can exceed your concept of yourself. That is why the great work is not to change the outer world, but to change the inner assumption from which the world springs. Let us confront this truth gently, yet directly. If you dislike the world you see, it is only revealing who you have been assuming yourself to be. This is not condemnation, it is liberation. For if you assumed yourself into your present condition, then you can assume yourself out of it. You may shed your present identity like a snake sheds its skin, leaving the old self behind as something that no longer fits. You need not analyze your traumas, trace your lineage, or rewrite your history. Assume a new concept of self, and the past will rearrange itself to support it. Now listen closely. You are always assuming something about yourself. Every moment of every day, you are answering the silent question, who am I? Most answer unconsciously, I am tired, I am struggling, I am unlucky, I am not ready, I am not enough. And life agrees, but if you dare to answer differently, I am favored, I am provided for, I am chosen, I am the one things work out for, then life must agree just as faithfully, not because you earned it, but because consciousness, the only cause, dictates reality. This simple truth is the cornerstone of all creation. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest what you assume yourself to be. All change begins in self-concept, not effort, not effort, not effort, identity. Now let us look outward, not to examine the world as an objective thing, but to understand it as a mirror, a stage on which only one actor performs in countless forms. For the world as you know it is not responding to what you say you desire. It is responding to who you assume yourself to be. It does not bow to your words. It bends to your state. Every event, every encounter, every person you meet is clothed in the garment you yourself have woven in imagination. The universe is not external to you. It is you, objectified. And so tonight, I tell you something which seems at first almost offensive to the rational mind. You do not meet life, you meet yourself. If this statement unsettles you, sit with it, for it carries the key to your liberation. You believe your disappointments come from employers, or circumstances, or the decisions of other men. Yet what you call others are only shadows cast by your assumptions. Let me speak plainly. A man may believe the world is indifferent, that opportunities pass him by, that people overlook him and circumstances betray him. He may blame conditions, rivals, timing, even God. But I say to you, even if gently, he is simply meeting his own consciousness in the face of others. Life can only echo what you whisper to yourself in the silence. If you assume rejection, rejection must appear. If you assume delay, life delays. If you assume unworthiness, the world withdraws its gifts. Not because the world is cruel, but because it is lawful. Let me share with you an example of a young man who once attended my lectures in New York. He came to me burdened by repeated failure, lost positions, missed opportunities, promises broken. He said, "Neville, no matter how hard I try, life closes the door." I listened quietly and then asked, "Tell me truthfully, when you lie awake at night, when no one sees you, who are you in imagination?" He paused, startled, and answered, "I suppose the one who is overlooked, the one who always arrives too late." That was all we needed to know. He had not failed in life. He had succeeded perfectly in expressing his assumption. His world was faithful. It reflected him with precision. We worked not on effort, not strategy, not persuasion, but on identity. He was instructed each night to assume, not with words but with feeling, that he was the chosen one, the indispensable one, The man circumstances favored. Within weeks, not months, his world rearranged itself. The very employer who once dismissed him extended an offer with increased pay and responsibility. The friends began seeking his counsel. Doors opened as though they had been waiting all along. Nothing external changed except the man's concept of himself. Now, let me give you a contrasting example. For the universe does not discriminate between positive and negative assumptions. It mirrors both. There was another student, a woman of remarkable talent, but she held a deep conviction that others resented her success. She assumed competition, hostility, and envy. And so, even when praised, she heard insult. Even when supported, she felt attacked. Even when opportunities came, she perceived them as threats. Life complied with her assumption, and she came to me saying, "You see, Neville, I am surrounded by those who wish me harm." But she could not see that the harm was not in others, but in her own image of self projected outward. There are no enemies outside of consciousness. You need not defend yourself against shadows. You need only change the light within that casts them. Now understand this. People do not act independently of your assumption. Letters arrive or fail to arrive according to the state you occupy. Phone calls come or do not come because of who you assume yourself to be. Men hire you, decline you, embrace you, or forget you, not of their own will, but because they are compelled to play their part according to your inner play. This is not manipulation, it is law. You are not changing others, you are changing self, and others reflect the change. The universe is a divine echo chamber. What you whisper in imagination, it shouts in fact. Let me repeat this, so that it settles into the deepest folds of your awareness. You do not meet life, you meet yourself. If a man walks through the world, believing others are selfish, he must encounter selfishness. If he believes others are generous, he must encounter generosity. If he assumes he is favored, life becomes a tapestry of welcome. The world cannot betray your assumption, it can only reveal it. Now listen carefully, for here lies the greatest misunderstanding. The universe does not respond to your wishes. The universe responds to your nature. To change your experience, you must change your state. You may pray, affirm, visualize, but if beneath all words, you still assume yourself small, nothing can come that does not match smallness. Creation begins and ends in self-identity. And so I ask you, who must you be in consciousness for your world to take its rightful shape? Not what must happen, not who must act, not what must change, but who must I assume myself to be for such a world to exist? Answer that, and the path appears. Not by force, not by strategy, but by inevitability. For consciousness is the only reality, and the world is merely its photograph. Tonight, I wish to introduce you to a truth so subtle that most men overlook it entirely, and yet so powerful that it determines the course of every life on earth. You are not your circumstances. You are not even your thoughts. You are the one who occupies a state. The state is simply a way of being in imagination, a mood, a posture of consciousness, a hidden assumption from which all thoughts, reactions, and outcomes flow. A state is not external. A state is not physical. A state is not earned. A state is entered. Just as a traveler moves from country to country, you move from state to state. And just as each land contains its own customs, language, and climate, each state carries its own thoughts, feelings, impulses, and manifestations. Let me say this clearly. You are not the state you occupy. You are the one who moves through states. The moment you grasp this, you cease identifying with limitation and begin to command life. Most men believe they are the poor man, or the sick man, or the rejected man. But these are not identities, they are states. States may be visited, remained in, or abandoned. A man may live half a lifetime in the state of defeat, and in a single night of deep inner movement, enter the state of triumph. Now understand this. Each state contains within itself all the evidence necessary to sustain it. When you dwell in the state of poverty, you think poor thoughts, speak poor words, expect poor outcomes, and meet others who confirm poverty. Not because these conditions cause poverty, but because they belong to that state. Just as a tropical land contains palms, warm winds, and soft rains, and the Arctic contains ice, silence, and frost, Each state contains its own natural landscape. If you wish to transform your world, do not fight the landscape. Change the land. Do not strive to alter events. Change the state from which they arise. Let me offer examples, for the mind grasps truth more firmly when clothed in illustration. There is the state of the poor man. He may work tirelessly, he may save, he may pray, he may bargain with life, but if inwardly he assumes himself small, unseen, unworthy of abundance, his efforts only reinforce his state. He is poor not because of the coin in his pocket, but because of the feeling he accepts as himself. There is the state of the rejected. He may attend gatherings, speak with confidence, adorn himself outwardly, yet deep within he assumes himself unwanted. Life must comply. Those he meets feel an inexplicable urge to withdraw, not knowing they are only enacting the script he wrote in silence. There is the state of the chosen one. He walks through life not demanding attention, but assuming it, not seeking approval, but knowing he is approved. And life, faithful as ever, ushers him forward, opening doors before he reaches them. There is the state of the wealthy. This man does not concern himself with coins or accounts. Wealth to him is a natural atmosphere, a state of ease, expectation, and sufficiency. Long before money arrives, wealth is already his. And finally, there is the state of the beloved. This individual does not chase affection. He assumes himself loved, cherished, desired, and others feel moved to play the role he silently assigned them. Do you see the great truth? States precede events. States generate behavior. States summon people and circumstances. Let me bring this closer to your own experience. Recall a time when you felt utterly defeated, when no solution appeared and hope slipped through your fingers. You spoke differently, walked differently, and saw the world through a veil of heaviness. You were in a state. Now recall a time when you knew, without evidence, without reassurance, that everything would unfold in your favor. Perhaps you woke one morning filled with purpose and power. You walked into the day differently. People responded differently. That too was a state. The movement between states is internal. You do not enter a state by action. You enter a state by imagination and feeling. A man may begin with empty pockets and yet enter the state of wealth tonight. Another may possess great fortune and yet live in the state of lack. One is rich on the inside, the other is poor on the throne. Therefore do not judge a state by appearance, judge it by consciousness. States are not changed by effort, they are changed by identity. And here is the liberating truth I want you to take with you tonight. No state is permanent unless you make it so. The moment you cease to identify with defeat, defeat dissolves. The moment you withdraw attention from the state of abandonment, you cease to attract those who abandon you. The moment you assume success, life rearranges itself to sustain it. Just as light dispels darkness without struggle, a new state displaces the old without effort. You need not fight the shadow. You simply step into the light from which the shadow never existed. So tonight, ask not how you may change the world. Ask instead, what state must I occupy for such a world to naturally unfold, and enter it? For consciousness is the only cause, and states are the expressions through which consciousness molds reality. The state you occupy at this very moment is writing the script for the world you will meet tomorrow. Choose wisely. You must understand a profound truth. The universe is not responding to what you want, nor even to what you think about. It responds to what you assume yourself to be. The assumption you hold, quietly, consistently, even unconsciously, forms a vibration of being, and life has no choice but to mirror it faithfully. As within, so without is not poetry. It is law. If you assume yourself unworthy, the world will present evidence of unworthiness. If you assume yourself overlooked, life arranges itself so that eyes slide past you, opportunities pass you by, and even friends forget to call. This is not punishment. It is the outward echo of an inward stance. Your assumption sets the tone, and everything else in your world strikes the chord that matches it. Let me illustrate with a man who once came to hear me speak. He told me he felt cursed by life, for he was always the one chosen last at work in society, even within his own family. He believed, quite sincerely, that others simply did not see him. He called himself invisible. I asked him, "Do you truly believe they overlook you? Or do you assume no one could possibly choose you?" He paused, and in that silence he recognized the truth not of the world, but of himself. His assumption created his fate. He carried himself as one unchosen. He quietly expected rejection. When entering a room, he entered as though apologizing for being there. His speech, his body, even his silence proclaimed, "Do not choose me, I am merely present." Life complied. People approached him last. Invitations arrived too late. Decisions favored others, not because they opposed him, but because they expressed the state he occupied. Now listen carefully. No one is doing anything to you. They are doing everything through you. They are actors, reading a script written in your own consciousness. When the man understood this, he asked me how to change it. I told him, "Do not strive to convince others to choose you. Instead, assume that you are always the one they choose. Wear that feeling as you would a tailored garment." He practiced silently, not forcefully, not through effort, but through being. He imagined himself at the center of attention, not as a performer, but as a man naturally regarded, naturally called upon, naturally placed first. He rehearsed the feeling before sleep, not as hope, but as fact. Days later, his experiences began to shift. A colleague asked him for leadership on a project without his volunteering. His family sought his opinion before making plans. Even strangers deferred to him in mundane situations, speaking to him first, asking him to go ahead, choosing him automatically, instinctively, without conscious deliberation. The change was not in the world. The change was in the one who perceives the world. He said to me, "Neville, how is it that every person suddenly behaves differently toward me?" And I answered, "They did not change. You changed." And they had no choice but to express your new assumption. Now another subtle point must be understood. When you adopt a new state, the outer world may not immediately produce evidence that pleases you. In fact, you may encounter events that appear contrary to your desire. These are not signs of failure. They are signs of reorganization. Imagine you are rebuilding a house. Before the new foundation can be laid, the old structure must be dismantled. Walls fall before new rooms can be formed. Dust and debris fill the air, not as destruction, but as transition. So it is with the universe. When you assume wealth, the first event may be the collapse of a job that kept you small. When you assume love, a relationship built on insecurity may dissolve. When you assume success, old obligations may fall away so that the new life may enter. This confuses the untrained mind, which clings to appearances. But you, having heard these words, must not be shaken by the interim. What appears as delay is preparation. What appears as rejection is realignment. What appears as loss is clearing the field for your assumption to bloom. All things move to make room for the state you occupy. No event stands alone. Everything is a link in the chain leading to the world you have chosen. So when the world seems not to comply, stand stronger. When circumstances contradict, persist. When doubt whispers, return to the state of the wish fulfilled. For the universe does not respond to requests, it responds to identity. Life bends to the man who knows himself. And I say to you tonight, assume the highest truth of yourself, and let the world rise to meet you. There are many who hear my words, and they immediately begin repeating phrases, writing affirmations, or declaring desires with great enthusiasm. Yet enthusiasm alone has no creative power. The spoken word without inner conviction is but wind passing through reeds, noise without manifestation. You do not manifest what you say. You manifest what you feel as true about yourself. Feeling is the secret has been misunderstood by thousands. They imagine that feeling refers to emotions directed toward objects, money, success, health, love. But I tell you now, you do not feel about things. You feel about yourself. You do not feel money. You feel yourself as wealthy. You do not feel a relationship. You feel yourself as loved. You do not feel success. You feel yourself as the successful one. The feeling is not toward the object. The feeling is toward your identity in relation to the object. That is the key most never discover. You may repeat endlessly, "I am rich, yet feel yourself poor, and the world will bring you experiences of poverty, not because the words failed, but because the words were spoken from the state of lack. Two men may say the same words, but their worlds will differ entirely. Let me give you an example. There are two men standing side by side, both declaring, "I attract wealth." One says it with the inner posture of a beggar, pleading for change while secretly believing he does not deserve it. His affirmation is a cry from the state of lack, and so he receives more lack. The other man says the very same words, yet he speaks from fullness. He feels wealth as natural, as though abundance were the air surrounding him. His words are not requests, but acknowledgments. One begs, one possesses, and the universe responds only to the possessor. The world does not listen to the voice of the mouth. It listens to the vibration of the heart. Now let me bring you deeper. Most men begin their spiritual work by asking, "What do I want?" Far better is to ask, "Who am I?" that such a thing would naturally be mine. For desire without transformation is fantasy, but desire with identity is birth. Do not try to feel that money is coming to you. Instead, feel that you are the type of being to whom money already comes. Do not try to feel that love will arrive. Instead, feel yourself already as one who is loved, cherished, and desired. The lover appears not because you seek him, but because the state requires his presence. Life obeys identity. Let us perform a small exercise now, not with words, but with being. Close your eyes, not because darkness has power, but because it quiets the outer world. Allow your shoulders to loosen. Let the breath ease itself. Release all effort. And now, without knowing how, without constructing scenes, without forcing anything, simply feel this: I am the one for whom things naturally work out. Not as a hope, not as a prayer, not as a request, as a quiet fact. Let it settle as though it has always been true. Feel how the body shifts, a softness enters, the breath deepens, the mind ceases to chase outcomes. This is the feeling tone of identity. Remain in that feeling for a moment. Do not try to add anything to it. Do not reach for proof. Simply be that one. Now gently return your awareness to this room. This exercise is not about forming images. It is about forming yourself. The universe does not respond to goals. It responds to who you are being. This is why prayer succeeds only when the feeling is one of fulfillment. Whenever you pray, believe that you have received it, and you shall. To believe you have received is to feel yourself already transformed. If you pray while remaining the same self, you have not prayed. You have merely begged. And I say this with compassion, for begging may sound spiritual, but it is the loudest affirmation of lack. The true prayer is identity assumed. You step into the state of the fulfilled one, and remain there until the world catches up. Begin not with things, but with yourself. Begin not with effort, but with feeling. Begin not with striving, but with being. For feeling is the secret, and identity is the root of feeling. When you know yourself as the one who already is, the world bows to the one you have become. Living in the end has been gravely misunderstood, even by those who profess to follow this teaching. Many imagine the end as a place where they possess things: money, a partner, recognition, success. They believe they must visualize objects, conditions, and events, as though holding them in their hands. But I tell you now, living in the end is not the possession of things. It is the assumption of being the kind of man for whom such things are natural. You do not live in the end by imagining wealth as distance, or love as something coming toward you. You live in the end when you become inwardly the man whose life already reflects such realities. The end is a state of being, not a scene of acquisition. There is a great difference between the poor man trying to be wealthy and the wealthy man living quietly in his wealth. One strains, competes, clings, hopes, counts, fears. The other moves with ease, walks without hurry, and expects abundance as naturally as dawn expects morning. The poor man may say the same words as the wealthy. He may repeat, "I am rich," until his lips grow numb. But if he feels himself poor, his declaration is but the cry of longing. Words spoken from lack do not create abundance. They perpetuate the state from which they arise. The wealthy man may say nothing at all, yet his consciousness proclaims, "It is done," and life reflects that silent certainty. Likewise with love, there is the lonely one begging to be chosen, hoping for proof, fearing abandonment, watching others for signs of acceptance. This one does not truly seek love. He seeks evidence that he is not unlovable. Then there is the beloved, who assumes himself cherished. He does not ask, "Will they choose me?" He assumes, "Of course I am chosen." And the world fulfills his quiet decree. Living in the end means surrendering the identity of the seeker and assuming the identity of the possessor. Let me put it plainly. Living in the end is the act of becoming before becoming. A man living in the end is not attempting to change circumstances. He sees through them. He walks through life, not as one striving to arrive, but as one returning from the journey, having already attained what others still chase. This is why I say, the end is not "I will have." The end is "I am." Now let us speak of how to enter this end. You begin not with struggle, but with choice. You select a scene, not long, not complex, but short and vivid, that implies your desire is already fulfilled. The scene must not show you obtaining the thing, but simply living from it. If you desire wealth, do not imagine receiving the money. Anyone may receive money. Instead, imagine the ease of being one for whom money is never a question. Imagine paying bills with calm indifference, or speaking to a friend about how fortunate life has been. If you desire love, do not imagine someone confessing affection in a moment of triumph. Imagine the quiet warmth of companionship already established, the mundane ease of breakfast shared, or the warmth of a hand resting in yours. If you desire success, do not imagine the moment of breakthrough. Imagine being congratulated afterward. The end is always implied, never performed. Let us do this now, gently, simply, without effort. Close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to withdraw attention from it. Let your breath slow. Let the body soften. Withdraw from the senses. Now imagine not the achievement, but the aftermath. The world as it appears when everything has already unfolded. Perhaps you hear the voice of a dear friend, someone whose opinion you value, speaking to you in a tone of warm recognition. Hear them say, quietly, with admiration, "You've changed. Everything works out for you now. You're not the same person you once were." Do not strain to picture their face. Do not force emotion. Simply feel what it means for such a statement to be true. What kind of man must you be for those words to be spoken? Feel that man. Not the moment of success, the identity of success. Let the scene fade, not because it is unimportant, but because the feeling has been captured. Now return to wakeful awareness. You have just lived in the end, not by imagining an outcome, but by assuming a new self. This is the secret. The world does not respond to desire. It responds to identity. Live as the one who already is, and life will produce the evidence in its own manner, in its own time, and by paths you could never foresee. The end is not achieved. It is inhabited. There is a sacred moment each night when the boundary between the visible and invisible thins, when the senses loosen their grip upon the external world, and imagination takes its rightful throne. This borderland between waking and sleep is the workshop of creation, the gateway through which states descend into physical form. I have said many times that the most potent moment for spiritual creation is the state akin to sleep, what I call sats, not full wakefulness nor unconscious slumber, but that delicate twilight where the body grows heavy and the mind becomes pliable. Why is this moment so powerful? Because in that state, reason sleeps and imagination awakens. The conscious mind, obsessed with logic, doubt, memory, and appearances, grows still. The subconscious, which accepts without question what is impressed upon it, becomes receptive. And what you feel at that moment is planted like a seed in fertile soil. The world you meet tomorrow is born in the state you assume before sleep. Most men fall asleep rehearsing the failures of the day, turning over grievances, fears, mischances, and anxieties. They believe they are reflecting reality, but in truth, they are sowing tomorrow's harvest. You cannot rise from a bed of defeat into a day of triumph. The night and the day are not separate. They are cause and effect. Let me tell you how to consciously craft your reality through this sacred passage. Tonight, before sleep takes you, do not imagine what you desire, as though reaching for it. Do not visualize yourself striving or hoping. Instead, enter the state of the one who already is. The ritual is simple, yet profound. First, lie down comfortably. Allow the body to loosen as though the bones themselves were dissolving into the mattress. You are not trying to sleep, you are allowing sleep to approach. Second, let the day fall away. Do not replay conversations. Do not remember disappointments. Do not organize tomorrow. What has happened has served its purpose. Release it. The day has closed its curtain. Third, select a single act that implies your desire is fulfilled, not the act of attaining, but the act that naturally follows fulfillment. If you seek wealth, do not imagine counting money. Anyone may count money. Instead, imagine the ease of speaking to a friend about opportunities already realized, or setting down a ledger knowing all is well. If you seek love, do not imagine confession or pursuit. Imagine instead the quiet warmth of being held, the natural familiarity of one who is already beloved. If you seek transformation of identity, choose a scene in which someone recognizes the change in you. Perhaps you hear a voice say, "You are not the same. Everything works in your favor now." It is as if life has crowned you. Do not see the scene from outside. Experience it through your own eyes, as though it were memory, not fiction. Fourth, bring yourself to feel the naturalness of this identity. Not excitement, not intensity, not strain. Naturalness. That is the key. The end is not dramatic, it is familiar. When the scene feels real and effortless, drift not into thought, but into sleep. Let the scene carry you as a soft current draws a leaf downstream. You are not trying to hold consciousness. You are allowing consciousness to descend into sleep, carrying the new state. Now, let us address the matter of resistance. For many of you will say, "But Neville, when I attempt this, doubts arise. My mind reminds me of failure. Old beliefs whisper that nothing will change." These doubts are not enemies. They are simply remnants of a former state, echoes of the identity you are leaving behind. You do not fight them. Do not wrestle. Do not argue. Do not resist. Resistance is attention, and attention is nourishment. Instead, return gently to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Turn your attention, as one would turn their head, effortlessly, toward a more pleasant view. If the mind wanders 10 times, return 10 times. If it wanders 100 times, return 100 times. Each return strengthens the new state. Each return weakens the old. The question is not whether doubt will arise. The question is whether you will remain faithful to your new identity. Choose each time to return, softly, without effort. The state will stabilize. You will find that eventually the imaginal act becomes easier, until it becomes natural and then inevitable. And when it becomes natural, it is done. You need not do this every night forever, for once the state becomes your dwelling place, sleep will serve only to deepen its roots. Tonight, remember, you are not falling asleep as the person you were. You are falling asleep as the person you have become. And the world will rise tomorrow to greet that one. There is a law in this world that operates with the same certainty as gravity, though most men live unaware of it. I call it the law of reversibility. It states that if a physical event produces a certain feeling, then that feeling, when produced internally, must by law give rise to corresponding physical events. Cause and effect are interchangeable. If receiving money produces relief, then relief, when assumed, must produce money. If gaining recognition produces confidence, then confidence, when assumed, must produce recognition. If finding love produces a sense of being chosen, then the feeling of being chosen must bring forth love. This law is not symbolic, it is literal. Consider how the world has conditioned you to believe the sequence is always external. First, internal second. You have been taught, when life changes, I will relax. When the opportunity arrives, I will feel worthy. When someone chooses me, I will feel loved. When the promotion comes, I will feel secure. But this is the world seen backward. What you call the effect is truly the cause, and what you call the cause is merely the shadow that follows consciousness. Let me illustrate. A man receives a large sum of money. At once he feels safe, provided for, empowered. He believes the money caused the feeling, but the truth is the feeling existed first, though perhaps only for a moment unnoticed. The money was merely the visible echo. Another man falls deeply in love. He feels chosen, valued, seen. He attributes the feeling to the presence of his beloved. But I tell you, the beloved is the mirror, not the source. The feeling of chosenness birthed the relationship, not the other way around. The third man receives praise from his peers. He walks taller, speaks with assurance, thinks more nobly. He imagines the praise caused the confidence. In truth, confidence caused the praise. Now here is the secret. If the outer world can produce a feeling, then the feeling can produce the outer world. This is the law of reversibility. Do not wait for events to give you permission to feel. Assume the feeling now, and let events conform. Let us bring this to identity, for identity is the root of all feelings. If being successful in the eyes of the world would make you feel confident, then feel confident now. If being wealthy would make you feel free, then feel free now. If being loved would make you feel secure, then feel secure now. Do not demand that life prove it first. Life proves what you assume. Now let us move from theory into practice. I invite you once more to close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to re-enter the origin of it. Let your breath slow. Let your hands rest without effort. Let your thoughts settle like dust in still air. Now bring to mind the version of yourself who never worries about money, or acceptance, or the future. The version of you for whom everything unfolds with grace, timing, and precision. Do not imagine this version doing great things. Simply feel what it is like to be that one. Feel the calm of knowing that provision is constant. Feel the dignity of one who is always chosen. Feel the ease of a life that supports itself. Not excitement, not intensity, just a deep and gentle naturalness. This is who I am. Rest in that feeling for a moment. Let the breath move through a body that has nothing to fear. Let the mind grow quiet, for nothing is uncertain. Let the heart soften, for everything is already arranged. Do not visualize money. Do not visualize lovers. Do not visualize applause. Feel the one who naturally has all these things. Now return to wakefulness. Understand what you have just done. You have reversed the order of creation. You have produced the cause, identity, instead of waiting for the effect, circumstance. And when the cause is assumed, the effect must unfold. This is not hope. This is law. When the feeling becomes natural, when you wake up and no longer try to feel secure because security has become your atmosphere, then the world must echo that certainty, and life will bring you what you have already become. For the outer world is powerless to give you anything you have not first accepted in consciousness. The feeling of being precedes and produces the form. Become first in imagination. Receive later. In fact, the sequence cannot fail. There is a truth which, once understood, forever changes the way you move through the world. It is this: no one in your world acts independently of your inner state. Men imagine that others think, speak, approve, reject, assist, or oppose them of their own accord. They believe that each person carries a mind separate from their own, a will disconnected from their consciousness. But I say to you now, as I have said many times before, everyone is you pushed out. What you assume of yourself determines how others behave toward you. What you believe you are, the world must confirm. The state you occupy internally becomes the script. Others unconsciously follow, not because they choose to play the role, but because consciousness is the only actor, and others are its reflections. You do not meet people, you meet your own assumption wearing their faces. Let me illustrate. A young man once came to me deeply troubled. He longed for respect from his employer, but felt constantly dismissed and overlooked. He said, "Neville, no matter how hard I work, they treat me as if I am insignificant." I asked him, "What do you assume about yourself when you walk into that building each morning?" He paused and confessed, "I expect to be ignored." You see, he had believed others were responsible for his treatment, when in truth they merely mirrored his assumption. I instructed him not to change his actions, nor to demand recognition. Instead, I told him, before you enter the office tomorrow, assume you are a man deeply valued, one they rely upon, one they esteem, one whose presence matters. He did so. Within a week, the same employer who scarcely acknowledged him began asking his opinion, entrusting him with greater responsibility, and speaking to him with a new warmth. His world had not changed. He had changed, and the world obeyed. Now another story. A woman once came to me distressed that her husband appeared cold and indifferent. She said to me, "He no longer speaks to me with affection. He hardly notices me." I asked her gently, "What do you assume he truly feels about you?" She replied, "I assume he is tired of me." I said, "No man can show you love if you assume yourself unlovable. Do not attempt to change him. Change your assumption of yourself." I told her to fall asleep each night, feeling cherished, valued, adored, not by him, but as an inner state of being. I asked her to imagine a simple moment, a quiet evening, perhaps, where she felt his presence close and warm, without effort or need. She returned weeks later transformed, saying, "Neville, he did not change gradually. He changed suddenly. One night, he simply softened. It is as though he awoke, remembering something precious. He remembered what she assumed, for no one remembers anything about you but the state you occupy." Let me offer yet another example. A man burdened by debt came to me, overwhelmed by fear. His creditor had threatened severe action, and he felt powerless. He believed others held authority over him, not realizing that authority lies in consciousness alone. I told him, "Do not see your creditor as an oppressor. Assume yourself to be a man whose obligations are easily resolved, that you are treated with dignity and cooperation." He practiced this nightly, until the fear dissolved and confidence took its place. What happened? The same creditor contacted him, not with threats, but with unexpected leniency, offering terms far more favorable than he imagined possible. Why? Because the creditor was never the cause, only the shadow. They are drawn to you or repelled from you by the state you occupy. Once you understand this, you no longer attempt to persuade others through argument, performance, or pleading. You no longer say, "Why won't they respect me? Why won't they choose me? Why don't they see my worth?" For you recognize that they cannot see what you do not assume. If you desire respect, become respectable in consciousness. If you desire loyalty, assume yourself the one whom others remain faithful to. If you desire generosity, assume yourself naturally provided for. If you desire recognition, assume yourself seen. Others will not change until you change. Now let me give you a simple practical instruction that may alter the course of your interactions from this night forward. Before you meet anyone, assume who you are in that encounter. Do not attempt to influence them directly. Do not imagine their responses. Do not script their dialogue. Instead, assume your identity in relation to them. If you meet a superior, assume you are respected. If you meet a lover, assume you are cherished. If you meet a stranger, assume you are favored. Hold that state silently, without strain, and watch how the scene unfolds. Life is not a drama performed by others. Life is a drama performed by your state. People are notes in the symphony of your consciousness. When you change your key, the entire orchestra shifts. You do not need to change the players. You need only change the score, and the score is written within. There are moments in a man's life which he believes are finished, scenes buried beneath the years, memories sealed away in darkness. Yet these moments, though past to the senses, remain alive in consciousness, shaping who he believes himself to be. For the past is not dead. It is still acting in the present through the assumptions you extracted from it. Most men think time moves forward, that yesterday drifts away as today arrives. But I tell you, time is not linear. The past is not behind you. It lives within you as a state. Every humiliation, every rejection, every moment where you felt small, unworthy, forgotten, these scenes do not fade. They continue to operate from the shadows, producing the same fruits again and again. A man repeatedly overlooked is not suffering new neglect. He is reliving the same impression of neglect encoded long ago. A woman who always loses money is not cursed by chance. She is replaying a state assumed during a painful moment. She never revised. For this reason, I say do not seek to change the future. Rewrite the past, and the future will rearrange itself. This is the power of revision. Revision is not pretending events were different. It is recognizing that the only place events ever existed was imagination, and imagination may be rewritten. The subconscious does not store facts. It stores impressions. Change the impression, and the fact dissolves. Let us proceed with great seriousness, for this is both delicate and powerful work. Tonight, I ask you to revisit not the triumphs of life, but the scenes that wounded your self-image, the moments where you assumed yourself to be less than you truly are. But we do not return to these scenes as victims. We return as creators. Let us begin the exercise. First, close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to enter the deeper world from which the outer was born. Let your breath soften. Let thought slow to a gentle drift. Now allow a memory to come, not one chosen intellectually, but one that rises of its own accord. A moment where you felt small, unworthy, ignored, poor, rejected. Perhaps it was a childhood scene. Perhaps it was recent. Perhaps you have tried to forget it. Do not fear it. It is appearing because it is ready to be redeemed. See the scene, not as an observer, but from within. Feel again the posture, the tone, the atmosphere. You are not doing this to suffer, but to locate the root of assumption. Once the scene is vivid, gently reshape it. If you were ignored, imagine instead being welcomed. If you were rejected, imagine being chosen. If you were humiliated, imagine dignity. If you felt unworthy, imagine being honored. If you felt lack, imagine abundance flowing toward you with ease. Do not change the location nor the characters, only the outcome. Let the same people behave differently toward you. Let the same circumstance end in triumph, not defeat. Let the same version of you stand tall. Now this is crucial. You must feel the new scene as though it truly occurred. Do not imagine yourself pretending. Imagine that the revised event is the real memory, and the former event never happened. You are not creating fiction. You are replacing a false assumption with a true one. Hold this new scene gently, without strain, until it feels natural. Now let it dissolve. You have rewritten the past, not the events, but their meaning. And the subconscious will reorganize your world in harmony with the new memory. For the subconscious does not distinguish between what happened and what is believed to have happened. It accepts the revised scene as the true cause and produces new effects. Let me illustrate how revision transforms identity. A man once told me he lived in constant fear of being dismissed from his position. He traced this fear to an early memory. At 15, he had been told, "You are replaceable, don't expect much from life." He carried that sentence as a brand on his soul. Every employer confirmed it. Every relationship echoed it. Every opportunity slipped from his grasp. I instructed him not to fight his present circumstances, but to return to that moment in imagination and rewrite it. Instead of hearing discouragement, he imagined the same voice saying, "You are capable. You are valuable. Life has great need of you." He repeated the revised scene nightly until it felt like memory rather than fantasy. Within months, opportunities appeared, unasked for, unexpected. His employer promoted him. People sought his counsel. He became indispensable. The world had not changed. The original memory had been replaced. Another woman carried shame from a childhood marked by financial struggle. She believed herself destined to be in lack, unworthy of abundance. She traced this to moments where she overheard adults say, "We cannot afford that. Life is a struggle." I instructed her to revise those scenes. Same kitchen, same voices, but with new words. There is always enough. We are provided for, life supports us. She practiced until these were not affirmations, but the emotional truth of her past. Soon, opportunities for income arose. Assistance appeared without effort. She moved through the world as one who expects support, and the world obeyed. Why? Because identity changed. Revising old I am impressions frees you to assume a new self. The past is a prison only while you refuse to rewrite it. Do not say, "But the event happened." It happened only in the world of sense, which is but a shadow of imagination. Imagination is the true reality. Alter imagination, and the shadow must move. You are not bound by the past. You are bound by your memory of the past. Change the memory, and the chain breaks. Revision is the liberation of identity. Revision is resurrection. Revision is forgiveness in its highest form. And when the past is healed, the future stands open. There is a form of prayer that men practice all day long without recognizing it as prayer. They believe prayer occurs only when they speak aloud, or when they kneel beside a bed, or when they utter sacred words from Scripture. They do not realize that prayer is constant, unceasing, and rarely spoken with the lips. Prayer is your inner speech. Your inner talking is your constant decree, your continuous assumption, your unseen command to the universe, not the words you whisper with effort, but the quiet commentary you repeat without noticing. For what you say within yourself all day long is what you truly believe yourself to be. Most men do not realize they are prophesying their own lives every hour of the day. They move about speaking silently. I am always late. Things never work out for me. That sort of success is for others, not for someone like me. I always end up disappointed. No one truly sees me. I am just not that kind of person. And then, when life reflects exactly those decrees, they call it fate, misfortune, or personality. But I tell you, there is no external cause. There is only inner speech becoming flesh. You are not punished for your inner speech, you are expressing it. The world is not your judge. It is your echo. When you understand this, you no longer look outside yourself for the reason things unfold as they do. You cease blaming others. You cease asking, why do they treat me this way? Why does life deny me? Instead, you listen to the silent monologue perpetually running within. For as long as the inner voice remains unchanged, the outer world cannot vary. Let me illustrate. A man once came to me convinced that life was against him. Every opportunity seemed to slip away. Each new endeavor collapsed. He believed his failure was caused by circumstances, by rivals, by misfortune. But when I asked him to recount his thoughts throughout a single day, he realized his constant muttering was, what if it goes wrong? It always does. People never support me. Others succeed, but not me. He did not speak these words aloud, yet he spoke them inwardly with such persistence that they shaped his entire world. I asked him to spend a single day doing nothing but listening, observing the tone of his inner speech without trying to change it. He returned astonished. He said, Neville, I had no idea how cruel I have been to myself. I speak to myself as an enemy. I told him, you cannot walk as a beggar in consciousness and dine as a prince in your circumstances. The outer world must mirror the identity assumed inwardly. Now, how do we transform inner speech without force? Not by rebuking, not by wrestling, not by condemnation. You simply redirect attention, gently, persistently, as one would turn a horse toward a new path. When you catch yourself saying inwardly, this never works for me, do not answer with argument. Do not scold yourself. Simply replace the tone with things are always working out in my favor. Not as a desperate chant, not as a plea, but as a simple statement of nature, the way things are. When you find yourself thinking, I am always overlooked, shift softly to, I am always seen, I am always valued. When you hear inwardly, I cannot change, this is who I am, replace with I am free to assume a new state at any moment. The change need not be loud, it need not be emotional, it need not be dramatic, it must simply be consistent. For the universe responds not to an occasional burst of hope, but to the habitual tone of your inner voice. Many attempt to change their lives by performing outward acts, studying harder, working longer, seeking approval, manipulating circumstances. These efforts may alter temporary conditions, but they cannot transform identity. Identity changes not through action, but through conversation. The man who habitually speaks inwardly, as though he is chosen, will live a life where he is chosen. The woman who inwardly speaks as though wealth is natural will find wealth flows to her without strain. The one who inwardly speaks as though life is hostile will meet hostility on every road. Life imitates inner speech, not outer performance. Let me offer another instruction, one that may transform your existence if practiced diligently. Spend tomorrow as a witness to your inner talking, not with judgment, but with awareness. Notice when you lower yourself inwardly. Notice when you assume failure before acting. Notice when you narrate limitation without question. Simply observe, as though listening to another person's mind. For most of what you hear has been repeated so long you no longer recognize it as assumption. Once awareness appears, change becomes possible, not through force, but through choice. You are free, in each moment, to speak differently of yourself. And when inner speech changes, identity changes. And when identity changes, the world reshapes itself in obedience. For no condition can remain once the state that gave birth to it has been abandoned. Your task is not to change the world. Your task is to change the voice that directs it. Speak inwardly as the one you long to be, and the world will listen. There is a period, often misunderstood, between the moment you assume a new state of being and its full external expression. Many lose faith in this interval, believing the law has failed them, when in truth the law is working with exquisite precision. This interval is what I have called the bridge of incidents. It is not a bridge you consciously build. It is not a sequence of events your reasoning mind could ever arrange. It is a path constructed by a higher wisdom, the wisdom that knows exactly how to transform your inner assumption into visible fact. The bridge may appear ordinary. It may appear chaotic. It may appear contradictory. But I tell you, every event, every encounter, every delay is ordered by your assumption, not to test you, not to punish you, but to make manifest the new state you have chosen to occupy. Most people expect a straight line from assumption to manifestation. They believe, if I have assumed wealth, everything should immediately improve. But assumption does not rearrange only one area of your life. It rearranges all things that were built upon the former state. Thus, the first sign of transformation is often not comfort, but disruption. Just as the old soil must break for the sprout to emerge, so must the former world dissolve to make room for the new. When the old self begins to die, it does not go silently. It protests. It reflects itself violently in circumstances, saying, "Are you certain you want to leave me? And if you are not prepared, you mistake this dissolution for failure." But I say the moment things appear to worsen may be the very moment the new state is taking root. Once a man assumes he is prosperous, life must reorganize itself to reflect that identity. But if his former relationships, habits, and circumstances were built upon a consciousness of lack, they cannot remain. They must dissolve. This falling away is not loss. It is birth. Let me illustrate. A gentleman who attended my lectures in New York assumed he was a man of influence and financial ease. He felt himself secure, provided for, respected. Yet within a week, the business upon which he depended collapsed. His friend said, "Neville, surely this is a sign that your method does not work." But I asked him one question: "Do you still feel yourself to be the man you assumed?" He hesitated for a moment, then answered, "Yes, more strongly than before." I said, "Then this collapse is not a failure. It is the breaking apart of the old world that belonged to the former self." Had he returned to the old assumption, he would have rebuilt the very world he sought to escape. Instead, he remained faithful to the new identity, and from the ashes of that dissolution came a new opportunity, a partnership of far greater value than anything he had lost. Within months, he earned more than in the previous 5 years combined. If he had judged by appearances, he would have abandoned the bridge midway. This is what many do. They assume a new state, witness the rearrangement, become frightened, and run back to what was familiar. Not because the new state failed, but because they failed to persist. You must understand, the bridge is not designed for your comfort. It is designed for your transformation. Do not expect the logic of the old self to understand the path of the new one. The old identity dies on the journey. It cannot interpret the signs meant for the new you. Now let us speak of signs. Men are eager for signs, yet they misunderstand them. The sign is not something that precedes manifestation. A sign is the recognition that the manifestation is inevitable. If you seek signs as proof because you doubt, you remain in the old state. Signs do not produce manifestation. Assumption produces manifestation. Signs merely echo what is already true. A leaf does not cause spring. It expresses it. The moment you assume a new identity, the world begins reflecting that identity. But in stages, you may notice subtle shifts. People speak to you differently. A letter arrives with unexpected tone. Your mood no longer matches old surroundings. Things once tolerated now feel foreign. These are not coincidences. They are the first movements of creation. The bridge has begun. How do you walk this bridge? You walk it by remaining loyal to the new I am, regardless of what the senses report. The facts of the world are like the residue of old assumptions. They hold no creative power unless you grant it. One must learn to say quietly, though appearances deny it, I remain the one I have chosen to be. If you abandon the new identity because the world contradicts it, you are not practicing the law. You are worshipping the senses. Faith is not blind belief. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. You are not asked to fight circumstances. You are asked to ignore their authority. Let me share another story. A woman attempted to assume the state of being deeply loved and valued. Immediately afterward, her relationships became strained. Those who once dominated her resisted the change. She was tempted to conclude that the law had betrayed her, but I told her, the old pattern is breaking. Stand firm. She did. And those who could not recognize her new worth fell away, while new relationships appeared that matched the dignity she had assumed. What she called loss was simply the clearing of soil. When one door closes after a new assumption, it is not rejection, it is alignment. When you feel abandoned after choosing a higher identity, you are not being deserted. You are being separated from what belonged to the former self. When delays arise, do not say, it is not working. Say instead, the new world is forming. I remain loyal, for the bridge of incidents is not meant to please you. It is meant to deliver you. And when you arrive, you will see that every step was necessary. There comes a point in this great journey of transformation when the state you once labored to assume no longer feels like an assumption at all. It becomes natural, so natural, in fact, that you forget there was ever a time when you felt otherwise. This is the true mark that your new self has taken root. In the beginning, every new identity feels fragile, like a garment borrowed from another. You put it on with intention, with effort, perhaps with a touch of wonder. You repeat inner conversations. You revisit imaginal scenes. You steady yourself when circumstances challenge you. All of this is good and necessary. It is the planting of the seed. But when the seed becomes a tree, the gardener no longer watches the soil. So it is with states. A man may begin by repeating to himself, I am prosperous. I am provided for. And though he speaks sincerely, the words contrast sharply with his feelings. He does not yet believe. He is practicing belief. But if he persists, not in words, but in identity, something quiet occurs. The sentence stops being a declaration and becomes a description. He is no longer trying to feel prosperous. He simply is. When a state becomes natural, you no longer affirm it. You no longer question it. You no longer notice it. It becomes the atmosphere of your being, the way water becomes the unnoticed medium of a fish. Only when removed from it would you sense its absence. The natural state is not loud. It does not boast, nor argue, nor insist. It is silent self-recognition. Let me illustrate. A woman once imagined herself loved deeply. At first, she repeated the idea daily, sometimes with enthusiasm, other times with doubt. She crafted imaginal scenes of companionship, affection, belonging. But she told me, Neville, I still feel the old loneliness. I told her, persist, not in trying to attract love, but in assuming you are one who is loved. Months later she returned, and with quiet surprise said, I no longer think about being loved. I simply go about my day as though love is the natural climate of my life. Soon after, relationships reflected this change effortlessly. But what mattered was not the new people. It was the new self. The state had become natural. Before, she tried to believe. Later, she forgot she ever had to try. That is the mark. When the new identity settles, old fears become faint echoes. They do not fight you. They simply no longer belong. The self who feared rejection, scarcity, or insignificance feels like a dream you once had in childhood. Vivid then, but irrelevant now. Let me ask you, have you ever awakened one morning and realized that something which once troubled you deeply no longer holds any power over your mind? You may not recall the moment the change occurred because true transformations rarely announce themselves. They arrive quietly, like dawn. The sun does not rise by tearing the sky open. It arrives by illuminating what already was. So too with identity. When a state becomes natural, you respond differently, without effort. Your tone changes, not by discipline, but by birth. You walk as one who simply is. Observe a child who has grown into adulthood. He does not remember the moment he stopped being a boy, yet the change is complete. He does not repeat daily, "I am a man now." He lives it without thought. It is not an achievement, it is a becoming. When you enter the state of wealth, you do not think like a wealthy man, you think from wealth. When you enter the state of being loved, you do not ask, "Will they choose me?" You assume belonging. When you enter the state of success, you do not wonder whether events will align. You expect alignment as naturally as breath. You no longer seek evidence. You act as one who is the evidence. And here is the most subtle sign: the struggle dissolves. You do not feel triumphant. You feel normal. Victory is not exhilarating. It is familiar. You simply wake up one morning and find that the inner battle is over. You are no longer trying to become. You have forgotten how to be anything else. This is the naturalness of the new self. And when that naturalness appears, manifestation becomes inevitable. Not because you are forcing the law, but because you have become its fulfillment. The world must mirror what you are, not what you attempt. So do not measure your progress by outer results. Measure it by how natural the new identity feels. For when it feels natural, the world will soon follow. And when it arrives, it will feel unsurprising, as though it were always meant to be, because it was. There are those who hear these truths and imagine that the transformation of self requires endless effort, long hours of meditation, elaborate rituals, or a relentless discipline of mind. They believe that to recreate themselves, they must labor constantly. Yet I tell you, creation is effortless when the state is assumed. It is not intensity that transforms. It is consistency. A single moment of profound emotion may ignite a state, but it is the quiet returning to that state, day after day, that makes it natural. You do not need to watch yourself with strain, nor do you need to recite 1,000 declarations. You simply need to remember who you are. Let us break this into the natural rhythm of a day, not as a set of rules, but as the gentle habits of one who knows the law. When you wake in the morning, before you rise, and before memory of yesterday claims you, there is a moment where the mind is fresh, unformed, receptive. In that tender interval, ask not, "What must I do today?" but rather, "Who am I today?" For your actions follow your being. They do not precede it. Do not repeat words to convince yourself. Simply remember. Remember the one you have chosen to be. Remember the identity you now wear. Let the feeling of that self fill your chest as naturally as breath. If yesterday you assumed yourself prosperous, remember the prosperous one. If yesterday you assumed yourself beloved, remember the beloved one. If yesterday you assumed success, remember the successful one. You are not creating anew each morning. You are continuing what you have already become. As the day unfolds, your task is not to watch circumstances, but to watch your reactions to them. A man may declare himself wealthy, yet shrink internally when confronted with a bill. A woman may assume herself loved, yet respond with suspicion when affection appears. In those moments you are not being tested, you are being shown where you still defer to the old identity. When reaction contradicts assumption, Do not condemn yourself. Simply pause and return to the new state. Say not, why did I react this way? But rather, how would the one I am now respond? Act from that identity, even if the world has not yet reflected it. Throughout the day, the conversation you hold with yourself is your true practice, not the words spoken to others, but the silent speech within. If you catch yourself whispering the old story, this is difficult. Nothing changes. People overlook me. Do not fight it. Fighting reinforces it. Instead, gently replace it with the tone of the new self. You do not need elaborate, poetic affirmations. Sometimes the simplest thought carries the highest power. It always works out for me. I am the one things come to. This is natural for me. I move through life with ease, not to persuade but to express what already is. When evening comes, the mind softens. The grip of reason loosens. Memory releases its hold. This is the time to take account of your day, not to judge, but to reshape. Observe any moment where you slipped into the old identity. Do not lament it. Simply revise it. See the moment again in imagination, but this time as the new self. If you felt ignored, replay the scene as one who was acknowledged. If you felt inadequate, replay it as one who was confident. If you felt lack, replay it as one who was confident. If you felt lack, replay it as one provided for. Revision is not pretending the past was different. It is claiming that consciousness, not history, is the truth. And after revision, as you drift towards sleep, enter one short scene that implies the identity is fulfilled. You need not construct a grand vision. A simple moment is enough. A friend congratulating you, a quiet sense of completion, a thought of calm assurance. Feel it until the scene becomes more real than the room around you. Then fall asleep, not as the person you were when the day began, but as the one you have chosen to be. This rhythm, morning remembrance, daytime awareness, nighttime revision, is not work. It is the natural hygiene of consciousness. Just as a man keeps his body clean, he must keep his inner self aligned. The world changes not through force, nor through effort, but through the quiet consistency of your state. When the identity becomes natural, the world bends without resistance. You may not notice the shift as it happens. You may simply awaken one morning and realize the struggle has ended, that the new self is no longer something you assume, it is simply who you are. Creation is not an act. Creation is a state, and you become that state by returning to it gently, repeatedly, until nothing in you remembers being anything else. This is the daily practice, not a burden but a way of being, not a discipline but a remembrance, for you already are what you seek to become. Now we come to the end of this night's journey, and I must leave you with a truth far greater than the law itself. For the law will give you the world you assume, it will reshape circumstance, body, fortune, and relationship to reflect the state you occupy. It will answer every decree and make visible every inner word. But beyond the law stands something far more wondrous: the promise. The law is impersonal, precise, mathematical. It delivers without judgment, without hesitation, without regard for morality or worthiness. The law gives to every man according to his assumption. It will make rich the one who assumes riches. It will make poor the one who assumes lack. It will return love to the one who assumes he is loved, and loneliness to the one who assumes he is unseen. This is the law. But the promise speaks of something deeper, something sacred, the discovery that the one you are assuming yourself to be is God Himself, sleeping in humanity, awakening by degrees in the very act of imagining. You believe now that you assume as a man, but in truth it is God who assumes as you. You believe you are altering your destiny, but in truth, destiny is the gradual awakening of the Divine One wearing your face. The law is the tool of creation. The promise is the revelation of the Creator. One gives you the world, the other gives you yourself. So I say to you tonight, the universe is not something outside of you, moving separately, granting or withholding according to whim. You are the life of it. Your consciousness animates it. Without you, the world you behold would have no existence, no movement, no meaning. The universe is yourself pushed out. You are not a spectator in creation. You are its author. Not partially, not occasionally, entirely. When you assume, the universe obeys, not as servant to master, but as body to mind. For the universe is not separate from you. It is the externalization of your inner speech. As you awaken to this truth, the fear of circumstance dissolves, the need to struggle evaporates. You cease pleading with life and begin commanding it, not as tyrant, but as source. The world no longer appears as a field of forces acting upon you, but as a mirror reflecting you. And as you become nobler within, so too does your world become noble. As you choose higher thoughts, higher states, higher assumptions, the world rises to meet your elevation. Tonight, I ask only one thing of you: dare to assume nobly of yourself. Do not shrink into modest identities. Do not reduce yourself to the memory of former states. Do not return to the shells you have outgrown. Assume that you are worthy. Assume that you are chosen. Assume that you are loved, provided for, guided. Not because you seek these things, but because they are the natural expression of who you truly are. Life must respond, for life has never been anything but consciousness expressing itself. When you assume nobly, the world must mirror nobility. When you assume beauty, beauty must return. And when you assume divinity, you awaken to the startling truth that there has only ever been God, dreaming himself as man. So tonight, as you close your eyes, release every lesser image you have ever held of yourself. Let the old identities fall away, like garments that no longer fit. Walk into sleep as the one you truly are, not the one you have merely remembered being. And may this night be counted unto you for righteousness, as you assume of yourself only that which is lovely and of good report. May your sleep be filled with scenes that imply the fulfillment of your highest vision. May your waking hours reflect the calm certainty of one who knows that all things are already accomplished in consciousness. And may the world show forth the glory of the one who imagines it. For truly, your own wonderful human imagination is God. And that is the end.